Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for President of the United States of America. Great to be back with you. You know, it's been an entire week since I've been with you because of the Thanksgiving holiday. And I don't mind saying I spent a glorious weekend thanking God, of course, and acknowledging the goodness of God in my life and in my family's life and in our country. But I spent 4 glorious days with my daughter, my son-in-law, and my wonderful granddaughter, Journey. So it was just, oh, folks, I'll tell you, I was looking at pictures a little while before coming on the air, and I thought I can get mesmerized and do this all day. Just looking at my granddaughter. So I hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend and holiday. We Americans, we are so blessed. It's one of the sad things about all of the protests and all of the anger and hatred of our country. It's a failure to really count our blessings. Now, I've got problems with the policies in our country. As you know, I am vehemently pro-life. I believe we're committing one of the great sins against God that can be committed, to kill our unborn babies at all, not to mention at the level of, I think we do have it down now to 800,000 a year. So it used to be 1.2 million a year. I think it's down to about 800,000 a year. And overturning Roe v. Wade, apparently, according to what I'm reading, has had some effect on reducing the number of abortions. As states have erected restrictions to abortions now. Not every woman is deciding, well, I'm just going to travel to a state where I can have one easily. Many women are instead deciding to keep their babies, and so we're saving a lot of babies as a result of Roe v. Wade having been overturned. But there's the whole the cultural revolution that's taking place that I've talked to you about many times. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this morning. All of these things bother me deeply. They really do. They bother me deeply. The corruption in our federal government, the departure from the Constitution. But I love this country because I really believe that what God intended for it is far greater than what corrupt politicians are doing with it. And that we have the most beautiful design for governing a people that's ever been concocted on the earth, because it provides for maximum individual liberty and minimal government interference. And you just couldn't ask for more when you look around the world and you see the whole world pretty much. Well, on my Thanksgiving sermon, if you didn't hear it, I talked about the fact that half the people in the world today live on about $5.90 a day. Half the people in the world. About half the people in the world have no indoor toilet. You know how many people in America have no indoor toilet? 0.3%. 99.7% of the people in America live in a home or an apartment with an indoor toilet and running water. 99.7%. And for the whole world, only 50% do. You think about that. We are blessed beyond measure. And I mean, those just really, I mean, that's just framework and infrastructure stuff. We could go on beyond that. I mean, to our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the right to keep and bear arms, to defend ourselves against crime and against tyranny. I mean, and on it goes, a government designed to protect the individual, but it's being corrupted, unfortunately, to protect and expand the power of government and to trample the rights of the individual. Sadly, that is what's happening. All that disturbs me, but I still love this country. I love this country because I really believe that the United States of America is a gift from Almighty God, and that we as Christians particularly are required by God to be stewards of what He has given us. That's why I love this country. That's the nature of my patriotism. I want to say to all of you Christians watching me right now, you know, we've now been marginalized as Christian nationalists. That's the new favorite term of the left, which is really to associate us with Nazis, which again, a lie out of the pit of hell, because I hate everything that Adolf Hitler and Nazism represents. It is abhorrent to me. It is an abomination in the sight of God. And the last thing in the world I want is anybody other than Jesus Christ himself having absolute power over people. I don't want that for Donald Trump. I didn't want that. I don't want that for even, I wouldn't want that for George Washington. I don't want it for anybody in our country. I love the way our government has been designed to make sure that power is diffused and you have to compete, rather than power being concentrated in the hands of a single person or a single institution. But we have people in our country who just don't know how blessed they are. They don't care, really, because they're so full of bitterness and anger and hatred, and they've been so brainwashed and indoctrinated by the left and by these colleges and universities that they fail to sit down and just really count their blessings. You know, I'm continually reminded that one of the principles of freedom is you have the right to leave. I mean, and even that, and I'm very serious about this. Again, I don't say this stuff to be snarky and to just, you know, try to be, I don't know, sarcastic. I'm being real about this. The people who are constantly complaining about how bad the United States of America is don't realize the blessing they have, that they can opt out. They can renounce their citizenship. They can leave this country and no one will stop them. Try that in China. Try that in Cuba. Try that in Venezuela. Try that in any country try that in North Korea. Try that in any country that has a totalitarian or tyrannical system and see how far you get. You'll get executed before you're allowed to leave. But these people don't realize you don't have to stay here. You don't have to be a part of this terrible thing called the United States of America that you see as being so horrible. You don't have to stay. And you don't have to remain a citizen. You know, I remind myself constantly, I am a citizen of the United States of America by choice. Now, I was born a citizen, and that was not by choice. I was born a citizen of the United States. Thank God. But I don't have to remain one. Once I came of age, I had the ability to say, you know what? I don't like this country. I don't want to be a part of it. I'm going to renounce my citizenship, and I'm going to go find someplace else to live. And I've had that option available to me in my entire adult life. I'm a citizen of the United States of America by choice. I choose to stay here. I choose to live here. I want to be here. I love this country. I'm grateful to God for it. There's some problems we got to solve, no question about that. And one of the reasons why I'm so active is because I am very deeply, profoundly concerned about the future of our country. That we cannot go on this way. Well, let me get to a couple of issues that I really want to talk to you about today. I've been talking to you, and you know, look, there are lots of things in the news, and it's not that I'm not aware of them, but even with what I do, I tend to go 45 minutes, and I really would like to go shorter. You probably would too, but so if I try to cover everything I have, I looked at my stack of stuff, as Rush used to call it. This morning I thought, oh my goodness, I can't get to all of this. There's just no way I can get to all of it. So let me focus on one issue that kind of leads me into where my campaign is as well. You all know that former ex-CIA director Michael Hayden has said patriotic Christians are no different than Hamas terrorists. Now this is Michael Hayden, somebody who I used to think was a good American. But he is now denouncing Christians as the equivalent of Hamas. Let me see if I can find the quote from him. But just terrible things to say. Oh, okay, here we go. Here we go. He responded to a post on X that juxtaposed two photos, one of a woman carrying an American flag, a Bible, and a handgun, and the other a Palestinian terrorist, Reem Riashi, who killed herself and 4 other Israelis in a suicide bombing in 2004. Hayden's comment to this post, juxtaposing these two, was no different at all. In other words, I, a flag-flying, Bible-toting, handgun-owning American, because I also fly the flag, it's on my property, it's at my church. I also very much believe in the Bible. I have one with me at all times. At all times. I mean, I have at all times. Of course, I do have a device now that carries it. But I used to carry my Bible with me before we had devices. Now I've got a device, it's easier. But I've got my Bible available to me at all times. So I'm a Bible toter. And I'm usually packing. I always carry concealed. I'm not an open carry type of person, but I'm almost always packing. Whenever it's legal, of course. I go into Washington, D.C., I don't, and I go into states where we don't have reciprocity. If I'm driving, if we have reciprocity, I'll carry my gun with me. So here I am. I'm the equivalent then of an Hamas suicide bomber who kills herself and 4 people, according to Michael Hayden, former CIA director. Now, this is what I mean, folks, about the rise of anti-Christian bigotry. Okay? And by the way, let me just put this in perspective. I know that I don't know what's going to happen to the American flag in eternal glory. I just don't know. I don't know whether there'll be any national flags that'll fly. Probably not, because only one flag will need to fly, and that's the kingdom flag, because we'll all be under one leader, Jesus Christ. But I'm sure the Lord will have things organized. I mean, I'm sure there will be governors and people appointed to carry out his plans and to give people his instructions as to what he wants done, because I really believe that the kingdom of God, we're going to be very active. We're going to be building, we're going to be creating, we're going to be doing things, but it'll be a perfect sinless environment. So there'll be no offense, there'll be no crime, there'll be no sickness, there'll be no disease, there'll be no death, there'll be no cursing, there'll be no lying, there'll be no cheating, there'll be no stealing, there'll be no pornography, there'll be no sin of any kind. But we will be productive and creative without the hindrances that sin presents. So all of that. But here's what I want to be clear on. I'm clear on this. I won't need a gun in eternal glory. What will I need one for? What would I want one for? So what about recreationally? I don't know. I really believe that we're going to be living on such a plane that things that are important to us now and things that we do now, we won't even think about then. They won't have a place then. So I don't think the guns are going to have a place in God's kingdom. Nor knives, certainly not the kind that are designed to cut or stab. I mean, we're going to be eating food, so I suppose there'll be utensils for doing that. I don't have any eternal commitment to a firearm. My eternal commitment is to Jesus Christ. I mean, look, I don't want to get off into the theology of this, but because I know that the cult of Mormonism believes something different. But Jesus said in heaven they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but as the angels of heaven. I take that to mean that in heaven there is no sexual activity in the eternal kingdom of God. You know how important a role that plays? I mean, for normal people, it plays an important role today. For normal people, normal, married, heterosexual people, it plays an important role. I mean, it's how we propagate. It's how we replenish the planet. It's how we create our children. But apparently, if I read that correctly, I don't think that's going to have any place in eternal glory. Can't imagine a world without it now. Because, again, it would be the end of the species. Not to mention the end of a whole lot of fun. But, so, the way they paint us as if guns are our God, that's really what they're really trying to say. Guns are our God. We are Nazis, religious fanatics, and gun idolaters. That's the picture they're painting, okay? And I'm just putting all of this in perspective. This is my number one priority. God. Not the flag, not a gun, God. Well, what about the Bible? Yes, the Bible, because the Bible is God's word, and I believe the Bible will be with us eternally. I believe we will be studying the Bible for all of eternity, and I believe that we will never get to the full depth of all that it has to say. So Jesus said, heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will never pass away. That's what Jesus said. Heaven and earth will pass away. So I just wanted to put that in perspective for us as Christians, so at least so you know where I stand on the issue, okay? But I'm not in heaven right now, okay? I'm on the earth. I'm a citizen of the United States of America. I live in a sin, sick, and fallen world. I honor the flag because the flag represents the country where God placed me, okay? I carry firearms because I believe I have a God-given right and responsibility to defend myself, my wife, my family, my property, those for whom God has given me responsibility. It's very simple. But no, from Michael Hayden's perspective, I'm the equivalent. If you are where I am, you're the equivalent. I mean, if you have the same perspective I have on this, you're the equivalent of a Hamas terrorist. And you and I know that the farthest things from our minds is going out and hurting anybody. Anti-Christian bigotry is on the rise. Now I'm getting to a point here, so let me move on so I can make sure that I get to the point that I want to get to. Here's the other thing. Oh my goodness gracious! I didn't lose my. Oh yeah, here's the other thing. Target has now hired a guy to be, Target's just hired this guy. This is his title. Senior LGBTQIA plus segmentation strategist and pride lead. I mean, that'll make your head just... I'm not making it up, folks. This is what the title is for this guy, Senior LGBTQIA plus segmentation strategist and pride lead for Target. His actual legal name is Eric Thompson, but he calls himself, you ready for this? Gay Cruella. Gay Cruella. He goes by the pronouns he, him, his, and her. Again, folks, I wish I were making it up. I really do. Because then you and I could laugh and say, man, well, that was really funny. But I'm not making it up. He goes by the pronouns he, him, his, and her. And one of his goals is to reach children. And here's a quote from him after he was hired. Here are his quotes. Time to whip out the glitter and hellfire flamethrowers and rip that old world to shreds, darlings. Quote, time to whip out the glitter and hellfire flamethrowers and rip that old world to shreds, darlings. When a company does this, it is anti-Christian bigotry. Because here's what they are saying. In your face, Christians, we don't like you. We don't agree with you. We don't want you around. We don't want you shopping at our stores. We want you to know that we are committed to a Sodom and Gomorrah vision for our country and for our company, and we don't want you as a part of it. Now, I'm not exaggerating, folks, because you and I both know that they would never hire a person whose job it was to reach Bible-believing Christians. They would never hire a person who, let's say, was given the title Senior Bible-Believing Christian Segmentation Strategist and Lead. Right? You know that would never happen. Christians are being attacked left and right, and if you are a Christian and you're part of this company right now, say you happen to be working in the office this guy is going to now be running, because presumably he'll be in the PR office or somewhere, I'm not sure where they'll put him, and you say, well, look, I don't agree with any of this. You're fired. You're done. Get out. We don't need you narrow-minded, bigot Christian nationalists here. Folks, that's where we are. We are in an age of anti-Christian bigotry. Here's one more. Now, this is related, but it has to do not with America per se. But what I'm telling you is this is what's coming to America. Because if you think about it, everything that's happened in Europe, it starts to happen here, and vice versa. Anti-Christian hate crimes in Europe jumped 44% in 2022. 44% in anti-Christian hate crimes. Violent incidents and hostility, open hostility against Christians, and vandalism and arson against churches jumped 44% in Europe. They documented 748 anti-Christian hate crimes in 30 different countries, ranging from arson attacks, graffiti, desecrations, thefts, insults, threats, and physical attacks. It went from 519 in 2021 to 748 in 2022. And by the way, many of these crimes, they're saying, are perpetrated by, quote, radicalized members of ideological, political, and religious groups that follow an anti-Christian narrative. Now, I said all that to raise a question with you before I go, and we'll see. Yeah, I think I've got time to do this. I've said that my campaign, as a practical matter, in terms of travel and speaking around the country, is on hiatus. Number one, and to this date, the fact that I was running was never acknowledged by any mainstream or secular media, including conservative media. The only media my campaign was acknowledging was Christian media. Christian media acknowledged my campaign. Secular media did not. And I think this is part of this rising anti-Christian bigotry, which, by the way, exists in the so-called conservative Republican Party, just not as virulently as it does in the Democrat Party, because the Democrat Party, as I said, is a party of Antichrist at this point. The Democrat Party is the party of Antichrist. If the Antichrist turned out to be an American, he would be a Democrat. Whether he'll be an American, I don't know. But if he did turn out to be an American, he would be a Democrat, because the ideology of the Democrat Party fits in with the Antichrist thinking. The Republican Party is not as bad because it depends upon evangelicals, primarily American evangelicals of European ancestry. Not very many Americans of African ancestry are part of the Republican Party who are also evangelical Christians. Okay? Some are, no question. Many of us have found a home there because we found that the platform could be influenced to reflect a Christian worldview. Here's the question I'm raising now, though. I've told you all, I'm giving very serious thought. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm giving very serious thought to leaving the Republican Party. I'm giving very serious thought to it because I don't think that the alternatives offered by the Republican Party are sufficient, A. B, I think the Republican Party still does indeed have the same anti-Christian bigotry operating. Here again, when Ronna McDaniel says to the Republican Party that we need to celebrate Gay Pride Month, she's saying to Christians, you're not welcome. I mean, come on, that's the only, she's saying to Christians, you're not welcome. Because Christians aren't going to celebrate any so-called abomination of a Pride Month for sexual perversion. We're not doing that. So who's she talking to? She's talking to everybody who hates Christians. She's talking to everybody who doesn't agree with Christians. She's telling all the Christians, you are not going to be listened to around here. We're not interested in you. What she's really telling Christians is we don't even want you in our party because you're in the way, because we want to be accepted by the abortionists and we need to be accepted by the sexual perverts, so just like the Democrat Party is. I mean, that's really what they're saying. I mean, Fox News commentators come on and talk about the whole transgender thing, but then they bring on Bruce Jenner and treat him like a woman. So, I mean, which is it? Everybody's all these media have compromised on this stuff. They've all compromised on it. And the Republican Party has compromised as well. And here's the question I'm raising. And I've got a lot of great friends who are Republicans, and I tell you what, I love grassroots Republicans. They're some of the finest people I've ever met. But some of these elitists in the Republican Party, they're not worth a warm bucket of spit. And what they really want is a Republican Party that will be Democrat light. That's what they really want, because they think that's going to do them well. And they're too stupid to realize the Democrat Party just does some things better than the Republican Party. The Democrat Party has got a much, much better machine because it's based in urban areas, and they perfected that process. They know how to turn out their vote, including cheating, by the way. They mastered that too. If they have to cheat, they know how to do it. I mean, Mayor Daley taught them, right? Lyndon Johnson taught them. They've learned from the best. So they know how to turn out their vote. Real and made up. And we're not going to make up votes, period. I would engage in that for all the money in the world. I'm not compromising my integrity for anything or anybody, and it's certainly not to win or to help a party win. But here's what I'm getting to. Has the time come for us to consider a political party for Christians? Has the time? I think about Mike Johnson. I was thinking about him, for example. Said, well, you got a Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson is a Christian, and he's not ashamed of his Christianity, and so on and so forth. And that's very encouraging, yes. But I'll tell you what, the Republican apparatus is going to be pressuring Mike Johnson to compromise from day one. And it already is. I mean, they're already trying to get him to put, I think, into the National Defense Authorization Bill, I forget what the issue was, but something that they wouldn't have expected him to go for, but he's considering it. Why do you think he's considering it? He's considering it because the pressure's on him to consider it. That's why he's considering it. Let's see if I can find that real quick before I go. The point I'm making is, it's not like the Republican Party is a Christian party that would always be supporting and pushing Christians to do what is right in the sight of God and what is good for the country, but would be pushing them to do what the party wants them to do, what's good for their contributors, what's good for their what they see as the political prospects of the favored ones. I'm tired of that, folks. We're trying to save a country. And you're not going to save this country by compromising with evil. You're just not. It's time we came to grips with that. And I'm not sure the Republican Party can come to grips with it. Oh, yeah, here it is, the surveillance law. He apparently, I guess, is not inclined to, but there's some discussion now that he's going to slip the surveillance law into the defense bill. Now, look, When the Patriot Act first came out, right after 9/11, I was supportive of it. I'm no longer supportive of the Patriot Act. I believe that we have had so many abuses that it's time for us to realize it has not served our national security needs. It has become a way of monitoring and spying on the American people. And it really requires complete and total overhaul. I have no problem, as you all know, with doing whatever is necessary to secure our national security and to make sure that we are aware of what our enemies are doing and trying to do to us. I mean, my goodness gracious, that's how 9/11 happened. We weren't aware. And of course, that's not all the fault of the technology. It's this human failure as well. So I'm all for that, completely and totally. I love this country. I don't want the American people put in harm's way if we can do anything to stop it. But I also don't want the American people spied on. And now we know the FBI, the CIA, these agencies have used the Patriot Act and used these surveillance techniques in order to spy on the American people and to keep a watch on us. I mean, remember, they used it against Donald Trump. That's not its purpose. Why would Mike Johnson want to put that in the National Defense Authorization Act? Because somebody's telling him it needs to happen. So you see what I mean? Even as a Christian, when you're part of that apparatus, it's going to be pushing you to adhere to their desires, to do their bidding. Has the time come for a Christian political party that would not be beholden to the establishment elites of either party and would rather hold them all accountable? Maybe. Maybe. Something I've thought about over the years, because I tell you something, we'll see what happens in this election. Of course, I've never tried to sell the black community on becoming Republicans because I knew that was a lost cause. I've tried to sell them on voting their conservative principles, their biblical Christian principles, and that would lead them in many cases to vote for a Republican, because a Republican would more likely be representing those principles than a Democrat. A Democrat almost always wouldn't be, and a Republican more probably would be. I mean, Mike Johnson's an example. I mean, this man has openly professed, yes, I am a Bible-believing Christian, period. Well, just to be willing to say that speaks volumes, because you see the way they've marginalized him and lambasted him and you know, called him a Nazi in effect, and everything but a child of God, as they say. Has the time come that we need another party? Now, as I think about this, folks, I'm not saying I'm going to lead something like that or try to lead something like that, because I'm 71 years old. Okay, maybe I get 30 more years in this life, maybe more like 25, maybe even 20, maybe even a few less than that. Do I really have time to embark on that kind of venture? Because to me, starting a new political party in America that's really going to have an impact, that's really going to stand the test of time and really going to have an impact on elections, that would have the infrastructure across the country to actually field candidates and compete. I mean, you're looking at a 10 to 20 year project. And frankly, probably a 10 to 20 year, ideally, full-time project. Now, I've made a career off of doing more than one thing at once. I'm right now I'm a candidate. I run Stand. I pastor a church. I was a radio talk show host, running Stand, pastoring a church, writing books. But I've got to figure out what the Lord would have me really devote myself to over the next 20 years. And when I think about a new political party, a Christian political party, I think, man, I think it's a great idea, and I think it may be an idea that needs to be pursued. I just don't know that I'm the person to pursue it. I don't know that I have the bandwidth to do that. So You all think about that, and you share with me what your thoughts are about it. Look, I talk about pros and cons. There's some big ones. Because I would like to be in a position, I would like for there to be a party in the United States of America when a Christian like me decides to run for office to say, okay, you may not have the money, you may not have the name recognition in the secular world, but you've got name recognition among Christians. We know you, we support you, and we're going to boost you. We're going to put you out there in front of the American people. See, because I'm still convinced the majority of the American people will agree with us, but they don't hear from us. How can they? When the mainstream media shuts us out, when even the conservative media simply doesn't want a Christian or biblical worldview out there. They just don't. That's not what they want. I can't think of a single one that's dedicated to that, which brings me to the other point. We must create a communications network for Christians that is dedicated to public policy issues. And we got a lot of great Christian communication stuff out there. And when I say infrastructure, I mean, we got AFR as a radio network, but the problem with AFR is the mainstream media does the same thing to them. Look, AFR reaches close to 200 radio stations across the country, reaches millions of people in the course of a week with all the different hosts and their audiences. But you'll never, almost never, see an AFR host on any secular news program. Almost never. Because there's a ghettoization of Christians and a ghettoization of the Christian community. They're not interested in hearing from us. I mean, I was telling a friend yesterday, there was a time I was on Fox 2 or 3 times a week. What changed? I didn't change. I wasn't involved in any scandal or wrongdoing, or nothing happened to hurt my career, or to have people say, oh no, we got to stay away from it. Except the LGBTQ mafia happened. They know that I'm known as someone who says homosexuality is sin, is an abomination in the sight of God. I do not support it on any level whatsoever. It's a scourge and a curse on our country. And the people who practice this stuff and try to sell this stuff are selling poison to the culture. Now, folks, they don't want to hear that. But it's truth. It is what the Bible teaches. And there's going to need to be, almost by necessity, as we move on, a political party that represents that point of view, and a communications network that represents that point of view. No holds barred. I mean, we got a lot of Christian television stations, but none of them are dedicated to this. And some of them avoid this stuff. Avoid it. I mean, the Word Network, which is dedicated to kind of the black Christianity, is a leftist thing. Now, I don't even know how much Christian it is. You know, TBN, I think, is really trying hard not to get involved in responding to what's happening to the degeneration of the culture. They got a lot of black preachers on TBN who basically are sold out to the left. I mean, one of their biggest people, T.D. Jakes, is a leftist. I mean, he's an Oprah Winfrey devotee, and Oprah Winfrey is nothing, as I said before. Oprah Winfrey is just a glorified witch. Now, look, let's just be honest here as Christians. Oprah is nothing but a glorified witch. Oprah, and look, and I'm not saying that Oprah's not talented or gifted. Obviously, you become successful because you're talented and gifted. But my goodness gracious, you know, there have been a lot of talented and gifted people who are full of wrong ideas. I mean, I don't follow Oprah. I mean, Oprah needs to be saved. She needs those demons cast out of her. But you got somebody like T.D. Jakes, he just runs behind her like a little whipped dog. I mean, and behind all these Hollywood types, oh, I got to, you know. I mean, come on. Folks, I'm just telling you the truth. We need a network of biblical worldview communication and communicators who are not ashamed to tell the truth. Now, I know what I've said, you might say, well, that's harsh, but it's the truth. Look, anytime, and let me just underscore this, anytime a woman with the audience of Oprah Winfrey stands up and says, Jesus Christ did not come to die on the cross for anybody's sins, and anybody who believes that is wrong, you need to be called out. Here, I want you to follow this new age guru that I've got. He'll show you the real way. I mean, you're nothing but a sorceress and a blasphemer. Come on, folks. I mean, it's, and here again, I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just telling the truth. I've watched Oprah Winfrey decimate a 16-year-old child who explained to her views on homosexuality based on the Bible. And Oprah Winfrey, and I'll never forget it. That's when I said, oh my goodness, this woman is bad news. She said, well, the Jesus I know made homosexuals. And that's a quote, because I never forgot it. The Jesus I know made homosexuals. Let the poor girl stand there at the podium looking up at probably someone who she considered a hero, reduced to tears because Oprah Winfrey basically stomped on her for trying to express a biblical worldview about homosexuality. And you got some preacher running behind her. And so, a lot of these networks, they don't want to, because, they got a lot of money coming in from some of these folks, and they don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. It's time for the church to be the church. He's coming back for a church without spot or wrinkle or blemish or any such thing. I've been gone a while, and you know what? I've got to go because I'm way, way over time. I looked at my watch earlier and said, let me end with this. I was reading in my devotion Psalm 50 this morning, and I thought some of it, what it said, really struck me. It says in the beginning of the 16th to 23rd verse, it says, but to the wicked God says, what right have you to declare my statutes or take my covenant in your mouth? See, what right does Oprah Winfrey have to say what Jesus came for? To the wicked, God says, seeing you hate instruction and cast my words behind you. When you saw a thief, you consented with him and have been a partaker with adulterers. In other words, all this stuff of saying, as long as you don't steal more than $950, it's okay, no problem. You saw a thief, you consented with him and have been a partaker with adulterers. I mean, what all this sexual perversion that's being promoted. You give your mouth to evil and your tongue frames deceit. You sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son. And you got people right now, if somebody in their family becomes a born-again believer, they turn on them with a vengeance because they become an enemy. I've seen people slander their own mother, let alone their own mother's son. These things you have done, and I kept silent. You thought that I was altogether like you. See, these people, they make up a God that's like them. They think God is like them. God is holy. He is righteous altogether. He said, but I will rebuke you and set things in order before your eyes. Now consider this, you who forget God, lest I tear you in pieces and there be none to deliver. Whoever offers praise glorifies me, and to him who orders his conduct aright, I will show the salvation of God. So let me end with this. Praise the Lord. Glory to his holy and righteous name. God is always right, and anything and anybody that disagrees with him is wrong, and he deserves all the praise and all the honor and all the glory because there is no unrighteousness in him. Well, you know how to support me. You see the various icons around you. Help me out. Pray for me and help me out. In the meantime, you stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. because we are on God's side.